Welcome to Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Our topic today is a faith-based weight loss program. My guest is Kristy McCammon, author of the book Life Unbinged. Kristy, thank you so much for being with us. You have an amazing, remarkable story. You lost 100 pounds and have been teaching other people how to do it ever since then. Thank you for being with us. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
So your story is so relatable to so many people. For 30 years, you struggled with binge eating, with obesity, with being really a slave to your food, and tried every diet imaginable, and nothing seemed to work until you invited the Lord into this problem that you had, into your struggle. And that was 4 years ago, and you lost 100 pounds. You kept the weight off. Talk about how your weight loss struggle began.
Okay, yes. Actually, it's now 7 years that ago because it was 2017, and I've kept the weight off for 6 years, which is awesome. And I'm so happy about that. But my struggle started really when I was young. Food just became a comfort and became a friend. And what started out possibly as in challenges and struggles and hardships became just a friend that was in every emotion, good, bad, happy, sad, angry, bored, celebration, grief. And so it became a part of me and a comforter and a friend. And ultimately, of course, I realized that that is not the comfort that lasts. Very short, and God has a comfort very different. But I felt like I should be able to figure it out by myself. I guess there was a part of me that felt like God doesn't really care about this part. It's just this thing that I struggle with of overeating or using food for comfort. And ultimately, I realized it was an idol, and I had to have help tearing that idol down. And so, after a desperate prayer, I realized that. I have to eat to live. God created amazing, delicious, abundant, beautiful food, but we don't have to eat everything, right? And we don't have to eat all day. And so those boundaries and partnering with him in that struggle and weight loss changed everything for me.
So your book is called Life Unbinged,
Mhm.
and your website is called lifeunbinged.com. And you say for 7 years you've kept the weight off, and you've been teaching other people how you did it. Talk a little bit more about your program.
It felt like a really intense year of losing weight. And part of it was realizing that food was a struggle and an idol. And as a Christian, I felt like, man, I love God so much. I must be doing something wrong. I must not be praying hard enough. There was some disconnect. But I realized I was praying and asking for this help and deliverance, but I wasn't doing my part. Sometimes we ask for help, but we've got to move forward so he can help direct us. And so part of it was just understanding my worth, who I am in Christ, defeating the lies that I constantly heard in my head, whether they were from me or the enemy or a childhood bully. And so after walking through that, losing the weight, getting to maintenance, understanding that maintenance can be hard too, for sure, that I started just briefly sharing. I felt like the Lord said, write a blog. So I thought, okay, I'll just write one little blog, pick a name. And my husband and I went back and forth. I asked for his advice, what's a good name, for partnering with God in my weight loss in this area. And I realized it's unbinged. It's just surrendered, a different surrendered life. And so after I started sharing just briefly and opened up a social media page just for fun and out of obedience, actually, I felt like the Lord just wanted me to share with a couple people. And women resonated, and women from all over the world have shared with me their struggle. And it's not so different than mine. It's the struggle of using something for comfort other than Jesus, using something for comfort, putting something in the high place where God needs to be in the high place. So I just kind of over time developed a course, and I have, membership and online program where, we connect women with other women in small groups and sharing and meeting. And, I have a course called the 60-Day Surrender. And it's a program. Yes, there's a food plan, because reality is it's not all about the food, but it's not about the food. We have to have some sort of food plan. And for me, that's, real, whole, healthy food measured, abundant food. God created great food for us. So we should be eating that and nourishing ourselves, and daily time surrendering in his word, praying and worship, of course. And I teach the 10 tools of surrender that God taught me over that year. And we walk through that as a small group, and people share. And just, I've seen incredible healing that I had no idea what my little story was going to do to impact other women. And now I can't stop talking about it because I see this freedom and the other side of surrender for so many other women that it blows my mind. And I'm all about it. And I'm going to share, and I'm going to teach, and I'm going to walk other people through that same healing process. So it's not just about the food, it's understanding our worth, who we are, how to defeat the enemy. God gives us tools, right? He tells us that no temptation can overcome us. Well, I didn't want to ask him, take this temptation away, because I wanted that food. So at some point, I started realizing that he is greater. And in turning to him, I didn't even want those foods anymore. I don't even want them anymore.
Wow, that's amazing that you don't even feel tempted by them anymore. Talk about this idea of idolatry. A lot of people would think, "Wait a second, what? What do you mean by that?"
So, first of all, there are times I do feel tempted. It's not a perfect journey. I mean, there are certain temptations, because if we've done something for 30 years, they're in our brain, and we might have a thought that we might want something. But I teach the tools, and I have the tools in place to walk through a temptation plan, if you will, to work through that and get to the other side of that temptation. But as far as idolatry, if we put something and elevate something above our Lord and Savior Jesus, that is what we turn to when we're happy or sad or stressed or need comfort. I loved God so much, and I still do, of course, but I had such a great relationship with the Lord. But it was almost like I would turn, like, I'm really anxious, I really need this thing right now. And almost like I would turn the other direction, get my fix, and turn back. And so at some point, I realized that food was in the high place, and I had to tear that down. I didn't know how, though. I spent 30 years dieting, not an uncommon story to most women, right? Most women, on average, have tried 12 or more diets, some up to 30. Exercise, diets, plans, programs, shots, pills, you name it. We want a solution. So tearing down the idol of the food, obviously we still have to eat, but the idol of food for comfort and certain sweet ice cream or processed foods that were not giving me anything other than a quick hit so I could get back to life, realizing that I had to tear those down, and that God gives that so much better, so much greater. And I feel better, of course, but I can serve better, I can love better, and I bring glory to him. There's no shame and hiding. I think a lot of us feel a lot of shame because we want to have this area together. We want to be able to have one cookie or one piece of pizza. Not everybody can do that. Some people have a propensity towards eating more, or addiction, if you will. So for me, it was tearing that down and saying, you know what, there's just certain things that are taking the life from me, and I want things that give me life.
Give you life. Absolutely. This is a wonderfully inspiring story. We're going to take a break and be right back with Kristy McCammon. The book is called Life Unbinged. Stay with us. Welcome back to Healthy Living. We are continuing our discussion with Kristy McCammon, author of the new book, Life Unbinged. And Kristy lost 100 pounds with her faith-based weight loss program 7 years ago, and is now, and has been since then, teaching other people to do the same thing. And, right before the break, you brought up such a great point, which is some people, a lot of us, I would dare say, I think I'm in this group too, can't really eat certain things in moderation. I say I'm only going to have a little bit, and then end up eating the whole package. I'm just going to have one piece of pizza, and then I just physically cannot seem to stop my hand from reaching for it. And it sort of reminds me of alcoholics. I mean, you can't say to somebody who's an alcoholic, oh, just have one beer a day. And it sort of reminds me of alcoholics. I mean, you can't say to somebody who's an alcoholic, oh, just have one beer a day. That's kind of a kind of a big eye opener because a lot of people are told just eat these things in moderation. Just have, a half a cup of ice cream every day. It's just can't be done for some people, right?
That's right. 100%. It cannot. We can all white knuckle our way through a lot. But at some point, we have to look beyond ourselves. We're not meant to white knuckle our way through life. And if we have something that is plaguing us, the thorn in our side, the struggle we deal with, it's okay to let go. Most people that I work with, they're afraid. They're afraid to let go. And I was as well. I thought, how in the world am I going to live without that thing that I really want to eat every day because it helps calm me and comfort me and, bring me back to center, whatever I was thinking at the time. I was afraid to let go of those things. The most incredible thing is that it's freedom by letting go. And I tell people the first thing I say is you have permission to stop moderating. You don't have to moderate anymore. It's okay. None is easier than one. And it brings this whole amazing level of freedom that I never dared to dream. I didn't know that. I thought I'd be white knuckling forever and, having this food noise and thoughts and fighting. But when we quiet that sugar monster, as some people like to say, because it definitely gets our attention and draws us to overeat, when we quiet that, the cravings go away. Now, of course, there's moments that a craving comes back, emotional cravings or things we remember, cravings like that. But the physical cravings stop and we don't have to fight quite so hard. And then our brain gets quiet, food noise quiets, and we actually get to live. Now, if you're someone that can eat one cookie and it's no big deal, that's not an issue, right? But many people, many, and I believe there's that propensity towards addiction. For me, I never drunk alcohol 2 times, but I've never experienced that. It was never something I wanted to do. I just thought, nope, that's not for me. But food can play that same role. It's still the thing I turn to for comfort. Of course, the consequences and outcomes are different, but the idea is that we don't have to moderate. I don't know where the concept came that we have to be able to eat, a cookie or ice cream or pizza. But let me tell you, on social media, I get a lot of people telling me, you're so wrong. You need to be able to eat those things. Why? They weren't even around, 90 years ago, 70 years ago, many things weren't even around. So why do I need to be able to eat them? I don't. I eat all the food groups: protein, vegetables, fruit, fat, grains, great, delicious, amazing food that God created for me to eat. And in fact, sweets are such a dessert. Pineapple, strawberries, blueberries, all those great things. When we get food back in its rightful place and sugar is no longer on the top of our brain and our tongues, all those things taste amazing. So we're not missing out on anything.
It's interesting because they say the same things that other people with other addictions have. People can't imagine their lives without alcohol, without pornography, without gambling, shopping, whatever your addiction is. But the
Yeah.
catch is you can live your life without alcohol or gambling or those other things, but you can't live without food. So that's where it gets tricky is we have to eat. We can't go cold turkey with food, but we can, as you point out, live without sugar and processed sugar and flour. So we're going to take a break and be right back with Kristy McCammon. The book, once again, is called Life Unbinged. Stay with us. Welcome back to Healthy Living. We're talking to Kristy McCammon, author of the book Life Unbinged. And before the break, we were talking about how you actually can cut out sugar and flour completely. And that's really what you recommend, isn't it?
I do. I'm not saying everybody has to do that, but it's way easier than it sounds. You had said, we wouldn't ask an alcoholic to drink just a little bit. And just as for me, if I eat a processed sugary treat or sweet, that lights up my brain like fireworks. And I'm not the only one. It's so, so common. And then our brain says, oh, that was good. I want more. And then we have a sugar spike and then a sugar decline and then a demand for more and then a spike. And then it's this cycle. So, if someone is allergic to peanuts, I really like to compare it to this because if someone's allergic to peanuts, they should not have peanuts. It's not worth it. It's not worth the taste. It's not worth what it does because it takes the life out of them. It's the same thing. It's no different. Processed sugar and flour have very adverse effects in my life, immediate and long term, and I don't want them. And so I'm going to put up some hard, fast boundaries and put in all the tools in place. Of course, support, reaching out to others, having a temptation plan, reaching out to the Lord and his trust that he promises that no temptation can overcome us. So sometimes we have to look hard for the way out, but if we want it, we can find it. So all those tools coupled with these firm boundaries change everything because we do have to eat to live, of course, but we don't have to eat processed sugar, processed flour, and we don't have to eat all day. So we can eat 3 times a day, measured amounts without those things and live life in between.
You really focus a lot about boundaries. You don't really snack between meals, because some of these plans are like grazing is okay. And, talk
Yeah.
about what your plan consists of and what it doesn't have. We know sugar and
Right.
flour is kind of not on the list at all. Sort of like try to
Correct.
avoid those completely.
Yes. And natural sugar is great. I always like to point that out because there are programs and there are people who say you shouldn't eat fruit. I don't understand that. It makes no sense to me. It is God given, beautiful, sweet fruit. And guess what? Fruit is filled with fiber and water, which allows that natural sugar to slowly release to our bloodstream. And we're eating it with a meal. I encourage eating it with the meal because it just slowly releases. There's no high sugar spike or anything like that from it. But I really don't like that people say you shouldn't eat fruit. Well, that does not compute in my brain. So, we eat 3 meals a day. Now, there are people, I work with a lot of women who've had bariatric surgery or have some medical issues where they have to eat more often. So I have a 4 meal a day or a 5 meal a day plan as well, or a 2 meal a day for those who like longer periods of fasting. But it's the same amount of food broken up into measured portions for those meals. So the idea is to write out the food the night before or the morning of. We know what we're having. It takes the decision out of it. We plan it, we make it, we put it together, we eat it, and then we go on to the next thing and we live. We don't question, should I have more? What should I do? Where should I eat? Because we all know if we're on the way home from work or soccer practice or wherever we're at, and we're on the way home and we don't have a plan at home, that drive through looks real easy. And so it's much easier to go off plan if we don't have a plan.
That is fantastic. And you talk about writing down the food, planning ahead. Talk about other things like the food journal and writing down other things like the way you feel when you eat
Mhm.
and how that's helpful.
Okay, yes. I have a food journal, but I recommend people always, write down what you eat. And so I plan it out ahead of time. It's the same thing I've done. I have 5 kids and a very busy life, and I've always written down our meal plan for the week. It's been very helpful. My husband knows, what's happening. I know what groceries to get. Everybody knows kind of what we're having, that evening. It's no different than me creating less decisions in my brain in that day. So if it is an anxious day or a stressful day or a crazy day, we all have them. I already know, okay, it's lunchtime. This is what I'm preparing for myself or my family. Takes out the decision making because I'm a firm believer that when we have those feelings happening, our decisions are not always the best, right? They can be swayed a little bit if we're, tired or bored or emotional. We can be swayed by our emotions. And it's important to me to not be swayed by that. So I do think it's
Right.
important if we do overeat also to make sure we're aware and we give ourselves grace and figure out what led to that moment.
Absolutely fantastic. This is such great information. We're going to take one final break and be right back with Kristy McCammon. The book is called Life Unbinged. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're talking with Kristy McCammon, author of the book Life Unbinged. And, binge eating is you talked about it before. So many of us have done it in secret, and it does bring on such a feeling of shame and self loathing. And that's what the enemy wants. And so many of us, when we do that, and speaking from experience, we give up. We're like, well, I blew it. I guess this isn't going to work. But you talk about this idea of grace, where, okay, I messed up, but I'm not a complete failure, and it helps you get back on track, right?
Absolutely. We do not have perfection available to us this side of heaven. So we have to accept God's grace. We can't think that it's all on us because, in essence, then we're idolizing ourselves. I am weak. I'm going to make mistakes, and God's strength is made perfect in my weakness. And when I fail or fall or struggle, He offers complete grace upon grace upon grace. And it's up to me to take that, not run with the struggle, but run with the grace and see, okay, I made a mistake, but I can make the next right choice and pick up back right up with the next right meal, whatever that is. I don't have to keep going in that direction. I can turn right back around to God, who loves, adores, treasures me and you, and offers total grace to get right back on track.
Kristy, unfortunately, we're out of time. Tell our viewers where they can get your book and find out more about you.
Okay, thank you. My website is lifeunbinged.com. Same thing as on Instagram and Facebook and all the places. YouTube, I try and share tips, truth, and recipes across social media. And as well as in my book, I have courses and quick start weight loss guides and trackers and all of that. And my book is on Amazon. It's in pre-order. It releases March 4th, and it is good to go. And I'm so excited to get it into the hands of women. And those who are ready for a course or a small group, look online and you'll see all of the options.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today, your devotion to the Lord, and for this wonderful tool that I'm sure is going to help so many more people than it already has. Kristy, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
And thanks to you for tuning in for this edition of Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson, and we'll see you again next week.